apologizing for?
We let it get out of control, and when I realized that, I cut it back by 95%. And I've apologized and asked for forgiveness. I've met with black leaders to try to get an understanding of how I can better position myself and what I should have done and what I should do next time. But let me tell you, I have been working very hard. We've improved the school system for black and brown students in New York City. We've increased the jobs that are available to them. We've increased the housing that's available to them.
But what more
we have
can
programs
you do about
like
this issue, Mr. Mayor, to put people's fears and skepticism to rest?
I think
it continues to follow you.
No, well, that's because it's in their interest to promote that. But if you talk to the people in New York City, I have over 100 black elected officials that have endorsed me. A lot of them are in the audience tonight. And I've earned the respect of people in New York City. I was the mayor of the largest, most populous city in the United States for 12 years. And people will tell you it's a lot better city today. It is safer for everybody. The school system is better. The budget's under control. We've done the things that people need in New York City for all ethnicities.
Mayor Buttigieg?
You are listening to special coverage from the Chabdog Sports Talk Network with the presidential debate, the Democratic debate on February 25th from Charleston, South Carolina. This is Eric the Well-Read. We just heard from Michael Bloomberg there, and he's being extremely polite because what he really needs to say to remind people is that during prior to stop and frisk, there were homicides in excess of 600 people. And after stop and frisk in the same communities, the homicides dropped in half. So he has saved, half the people, over 300 people, still had their lives because of stop and frisk. I don't think he has to be apologizing, but here they are making him do so. Here's some more.
For example, walking down the street or in a mall and feeling eyes on us, regarding us as dangerous without knowing the first thing about us just because of the color of our skin.
There's a white guy talking this.
None of us have the experience that black women have had that drives that maternal mortality gap
Very
that we are all
eyes.
rightly horrified by, of going into a doctor and being less likely to have your description of being in pain believed because of your race. Since we don't have the experience, the next best thing we can do is actually listen to those who do.
I know, wait a second. I know that if I were black, my success would have been a lot harder to achieve. And I know a lot of black people that if they were white, it would have been a lot easier for them. That's just a fact, and we've got to do something about it than rather just demagogue about it.
Senator Klobuchar, was the way that the mayor
Mike.
implemented stop and frisk racist?
Yes. And I think that what we need to do, instead of just reviewing everything from the past, is talk about where we're going to go forward. Martin Luther King once said that we are all tied in a single garment of destiny, and that what affects one of us directly affects all of us indirectly. So when there is racism in the criminal justice system, then we need to fix it.
Absolutely.
And to me, that means sentencing reform like the First Step Act and extending that to the states with the Second Step Act. It means equal opportunity, because if we don't pass Representative Clyburn's bill out of South Carolina here to invest in impoverished communities, we're never going to get to that single garment of destiny. And we also need to do...
Yeah, I met Clyburn once, a real class act. He obviously is from South Carolina. I met him in Denver at the convention in 2008. 2008? Yeah, it was 2008. Great guy. Solid guy. Had a drink with him. Had more than one, actually. Great guy.
I will get voting rights to be a reality for everyone.
Senator Warren, I'm coming to you. I want to direct this question to you because Mayor Bloomberg has said he got in this race late because he doesn't believe that any of you on stage can beat Donald Trump. You said Mayor Bloomberg is not the safest candidate. He is the riskiest candidate. What did you mean by that?
I mean that Mayor Bloomberg, let's think of it this way. We're here in Charleston. And you know who's going to be in Charleston later this week is Donald Trump. He's going to be here to raise money for his buddy, Senator Lindsey Graham. Who funded Lindsey Graham's campaign for re-election last time? It was Mayor Bloomberg. And that's not the only right-wing senator that Mayor Bloomberg has funded. In 2016, He dumped $12 million into the Pennsylvania Senate race to help reelect an anti-choice right-wing Republican senator. And I just want to say, the woman challenger was terrific. She lost by a single point.
But she wasn't a horse-faced lesbian.
He scooped in to try to defend another Republican senator against a woman challenger. That was me. It didn't work, but he tried hard.
Shut that cunt's mouth or I'll come over there and fuck start her head.
How much money Mayor Bloomberg has? The core of the Democratic Party will never trust him. He has not earned their trust. I will. And the fact that he cannot earn the trust of the core of the Democratic Party means he is the riskiest candidate standing on this stage.
All right, Senator.
Fuck you, fuckball.
Mayor Bloomberg.
Fuck you,
I've been training for
fuckball.
this job since I stepped on the pile that was still smoldering on 9/11. I know what to do. I've shown I know how to run a country. I've run the city, which is almost the same size, as bigger than most countries in the world. I am not the least. I'm the one choice that makes some sense. I have the experience, I have the resources, and I have the record. And all of the sideshows that the senator wants to bring up have nothing to do with that. When people hired me to run New York City 3 times in an overwhelmingly Democratic progressive city, they elected me again and again.
Mr. Vice President?
I was mentioned in this.
Kick your cock up her ass, you motherfucking cocksucker.
And referred to what I talk about as a sideshow. You know, this is personal for me. When I was 21 years old, I got my first job as a special education teacher.
Well, you know, that's how I do it.
And by the end of the first year, I was visibly pregnant. The
Your
principal
mother sucks
wished me
fucking
luck
big
and gave
fucking
my job
elephant
to someone
dicks.
else. Pregnancy discrimination, you bet. But I was 21 years old. I didn't have a union to protect me. I didn't have any federal law on my side. So I packed up my stuff and I went home. At least I didn't have a boss who said to me, kill it. The way that Mayor Bloomberg
never said that.
Fuck you, fuckball.
Oh, come on.
Pregnant employees.
Fuck you, fuckball.
People want a chance to hear.
Kick your cock up her ass,
People
you
want a chance
motherfucking
to hear
cocksucker.
from the women who
I
have
never
worked.
said that.
I want to allow the mayor
for the
an
record,
opportunity
if
to
she was a
respond.
teacher in New York City, she would never have had that problem. We treated
Your
our
mother
teachers the right
sucks
way,
fucking
and the unions will tell you exactly that.
Senator Warren has raised.
Let us have the women have an opportunity to speak. The Bloomberg corporations and Mayor Bloomberg himself have been accused of discrimination. They are bound by non-disclosures so that they cannot speak. If he says there is nothing to hide here, then sign a blanket release and let those women speak out so that they can tell their stories the way I can tell my story without having
Thank you. I
that they're
Nora.
going to be sued by a billionaire.
Thank you. We have a number of issues to discuss tonight, but I want to give the mayor an opportunity to respond because she has raised concerns about women in your workplace. At the last debate, you said some of your female employees might not have liked some of your jokes. Did these women take your jokes wrong, or were you wrong to make the jokes?
Probably wrong to make the jokes. I don't remember what they were, so I assume if it bothered them, I was wrong, and I apologize. I'm sorry for that. But what happened here is we went back 40 years, and we could only find 3 cases where women said they were uncomfortable. Nobody accused me of doing anything other than just making a comment or two. And what the senator did suggest was that we release these women from the non-disclosure agreement. I did that 2 days later, and my company has said we will not use non-disclosure agreements ever again. The senator has got it, and I don't know what else she wants us to do.
Oh, I'll be
We're
clear.
following exactly what she asked
I'll
to do.
tell you exactly
and the
what I
trouble
want you to
is, with this senator, enough is never enough for what this. I'm going to start focusing on some of these other things. We just cannot continue to relitigate this every time. We did what she asked, and thank you. We probably made the world better because of it. And by my company renouncing using these, we probably changed, hopefully, the corporate landscape all across America.
But if you get nominated, we'll be relitigating this all year.
Do what I asked.
Senator Warren, that is a very serious charge that you leveled at the mayor.
Bitch slap.
to get an abortion. What evidence do you have of that?
Her own words.
And Mayor Bloomberg, could you respond
really
to
off
this?
in the weeds here, Warren.
Never said it. Period. End of story.
Look,
categorically never said it when it was accused. When I was accused of doing it.
Fuck you, fuckball.
What she was talking about. But right now, I'm sorry if she heard what she thought she heard or whatever happened. I didn't take any pleasure in that. And we've just got to go on.
Yeah, Donald Trump was right. His daughter is a hot piece of ass.
All people who have discrimination.
We are doing that, Senator.
We want to get to the issue of electability and the ideological difference within the Democratic Party. Good. Senator Sanders.
Wow, this feels like watching Joe McCarthy getting torched. It's great. She's on fire.
Major proposals, but not all of your details are clear. You've proposed more than $50 trillion in new spending.
Whoa!
You've said Medicare for all will cost $30 trillion.
$30 trillion.
But you can only explain how you'll pay for just about half of that. Mm-hmm. Can you do the math for the rest of us?
How many hours do you have?
2.
That's
the problem.
No, it's not the problem. All right, let's talk about Medicare.
Tom Steyer, quiet down.
I'm sure you're familiar with a new study that just came out of Yale University.
Yeah, of course.
Published in Lancet magazine, one of the prestigious medical journals in the world. You know what it said? Medicare for all will lower health care costs in this country by $450 billion a year and save 68,000 lives of people who otherwise would have died. What we need to do is to do what every other major country on earth does, guarantee health care to all people, not have thousands of separate insurance plans which are costing us some $500 billion a year to administer. Our plan, we have laid out options all over the place. One of the options is a 7.5% payroll tax on employers, which will save them substantial sums of money.
Bernie, let me respond to that.
Does the math add up?
No, the math does not add up. In fact, just on 60 Minutes, he said he wasn't going to rattle through the nickels and the dimes. Well, let me tell you how many nickels and dimes we're talking about. Nearly $60 trillion. Do you know how much that is for all of these programs? That is 3 times the American economy, not the federal government, the entire American economy.
Donald Trump was right.
Plan alone, page 8 clearly says that it will kick 149 million Americans off their current health insurance in 4 years. That is true. As one prominent Democrat once said, we should pay attention to where the voters of this country are, Bernie. That prominent Democrat was Barack Obama a few months ago. And I think that's what we should do. They are not with you on spending nearly $60 trillion. What I think we should do is make things more affordable, nonprofit public option, make sure we're paying for long-term care better, take on the pharmaceuticals like you and I have done together, and do something for the people.
Holy crap, does this lady ever take a breath?
Broken promises that sound good on bumper stickers.
Mr. Steyer.
I think we're talking about
We'll get to you, Mr. Sanders.
Let's talk about it.
Can I say something? Look, first of all,
Bernie, let me go.
Tom, I think she was talking about my plan.
I think we were talking about math, and it doesn't take 2 hours to do the math. Because let's talk about what it adds up to. Let's talk about math indeed. Okay, so here's the math.
Here's the math.
Can I respond?
Nothing is what will happen.
Senator Sanders, you're allowed to quickly respond, and then we would like to allow the other
It's moderator,
Senator
guys.
Sanders. Senator
Tom
Sanders.
Steyer, shut up.
Is my turn?
This
Senator
helps a lot.
Sanders, you have been name-checked. You are allowed to respond.
Okay. What the Health and Human Services have said in analyzing healthcare costs, what recent Yale study has said is that your program would cost some $50 trillion over a 10-year period. We would continue to pay, in some cases, 10 times more for the same exact prescription drugs. What every study out there, conservative or progressive, says, Medicare for all will save money. Ours will cost about $45 billion, not $60 trillion.
No, I was talking
about Senator Sanders, we would like to bring Mr. Steyer in on this conversation. Mr. Steyer, please.
I was talking about all your programs.
This conversation shows a huge risk for the Democratic Party. We are looking at a party that has decided that we're either going to support someone who's a democratic socialist or somebody who has a long history of being a Republican. And let me say that I got into this race because I wanted to fight for economic justice, for racial justice, and to make sure we had climate justice for the American people. And I am scared. If we cannot pull this party together, if we go to one of those extremes, we take a terrible risk of re-electing Donald Trump.
Thank you, Mr. Steyer.
And that is something, I still have some time, and let me just say this. That is a risk that will hurt the American people in a way that none of us on this stage should be willing to risk.
Thank you. Let's keep this topic going here, Pete.
So let's do some math. Senator Sanders at one point said it was going to be $40 trillion, then it was 30, then it was 17. It's an incredible shrinking price tag. At some point, he said it's unknowable to even see what the price tag would be. Now there are new numbers going. I'll tell you exactly what it adds up to. It adds up to 4 more years of Donald Trump, Kevin McCarthy as Speaker of the House, and the inability to get the Senate into Democratic hands. The time has come for us to stop acting like the presidency is the only office that matters. Not only is this a way to get Donald Trump reelected, we got a House to worry about. We got a Senate to worry about. And this is really important. Look, if you want to keep the House in Democratic hands, you might want to check with the people who actually turned the House blue. 40 Democrats who are not running on your platform. They are running away from your platform as fast as they possibly can. I want to send those Democrats back to the United States House. Let's listen to them when they say
Donald Trump was right.
Thank you, Mayor Buttigieg. Vice President Biden, please.
I guess the only way you do this is jump in and speak twice as long as you should. Here's the deal. Look. A guy is a friend of mine down here named Fritz Hollings. He passed away. He said, you want to know what a man in a room will do? Look what they've done. Look what they've done. You talk about concerned about race. Well, my good friend on the end of this platform, he, in fact, bought a system that was a private prison system. After he knew that, in fact, what happened was they hog-tied young men in prison here in this state. They, in fact, made sure that in Georgia they did not have health care for the people who were being held. They, in fact, went on and he said, after he knew that, he bought it. And then he said he was proud of his accomplishment. You talk about what we're talking about with Bernie. Bernie, in fact, hasn't passed much of anything. The fact of the matter is, but I get to answer.
Yeah, Donald Trump was right.
Look, the fact is, here's the deal. I'm not out of time. You spoke over time. Look at what's happening here. Look at what's happening here.
Yeah,
we have to win the Senate back. And by the way, I went into all of those races that got 41 new Democrats. The majority of them are supporting me for president.
And Mr. Vice President, I have to allow... Yes, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, you're allowed to respond.
I bought stock in a prison company thinking they'd do a better job, and I investigated and I sold it.
Okay.
You knew when you bought it they'd done that.
I get to answer this question. And in fact, since then, I've worked to end the use of private prisons in my home state, and we've ended it. I started a bank to support black ownership of businesses, women ownership of businesses, and Latino owners of businesses, because this financial service industry is prejudiced. I have worked tirelessly on this, and you know I'm right. You wrote the crime bill.
Where we come from, that's called Tommy Come Lately.
There are other people here.
Put hundreds of thousands of young black and Latino men in prison.
Okay. Let me say something.
Thank you.
There's something going on here. I have worked for racial justice completely, and that is an absolute unfair statement.
All I know is
if
we spend the next 4 months tearing our party apart, we're going to watch Donald Trump spend the next 4 years tearing our country apart. So my argument here is that we need to get back to what's happening right now. We have a clear choice of who's going to lead this party. And I am the only one in the New Hampshire debate when asked if we had a problem with a socialist leading the ticket that raised my hand. I like Bernie. We came in together. I do not think that this is the best person to lead the ticket. And if you want to talk about getting things done and make a comparison, according to Vanderbilt University in Tennessee, last Congress, I was the most effective Democrat in the U.S. Senate on 15 metrics. Bernie and Elizabeth were in the bottom half.
It
matters. It matters if you
Okay.
can actually get things done.
Enough.
It is
Shut
not
that
just
cunt's mouth or I'll come over there and
who
fuck start her
actually
head.
gets things done, and especially with the African American
Shut
community.
that cunt's
who
mouth
have
or I'll
been
come
on
over there and fuck
promises.
start her head.
And I think having someone that keeps their promises.
Shut that cunt's
and
mouth or I'll come over there and fuck
and is
start her
gonna get
head.
things done for this people matters, and
I
that's
got
why I
more.
asked
No
for
time.
your support.
Mayor Bloomberg, please.
Let's just go on the record. They talked about 40 Democrats. 21 of those were people that I spent $100 million to help elect. All of the new Democrats came in, put Nancy Pelosi in charge, and gave the Congress the ability to control this president. I got them. Number
Yeah,
two,
you did.
when you talk about
You
money,
raised-
just put this in
What
perspective.
good did you do?
The federal
You wasted
budget
your money,
is
bro.
$4.5
Kick your
trillion
cock
a
up
year.
her
We
ass.
get $3.5 trillion in revenue. We lose $1 trillion a year. That's why the federal budget deficit is right now. The debt is $20 trillion going up to 21. We just cannot afford some of the stuff people talk about. Let me finish. If you keep on going, we will elect Bernie. Bernie will lose to Donald Trump.
Big time.
And Donald Trump and the House and the Senate and some of the state houses will all go red.
Someone's got their hands
And then
raised.
between gerrymandering and appointing judges for the next 20 or 30 years, we're going to live with this
Make
catastrophe.
Bloomberg
Thank you.
really
I will allow
presidential.
Senator Sanders a quick response, and
Thank you
then
very
Senator
much,
Warren.
Laura.
He's the only one.
Senator Sanders, a quick response, and then
Only
Thank
New
you very
Yorker could beat
much.
Another New Yorker.
Mayor Bloomberg has a solid and strong and enthusiastic base of support. Problem is, they're all billionaires. Now, if you look... On the other hand, of the last
Fuck you.
50 polls that have been done nationally, Mr. Bloomberg, I beat Trump 47 of those 50 times. If you look at battleground
Bernie.
states like Michigan, Wisconsin, and
Polls
Pennsylvania, polling judges
are
have done
useless.
this
Polls aren't the
Sunday,
election.
I
No.
beat Trump. And if you want to beat Trump, what you're going to need is
Yeah,
an
the polls,
unprecedented
Hillary played this game.
grassroots
She lost.
movement of black
Bernie.
and white and
Bernie.
Latino,
Bernie.
Native American and
Yeah.
Asian
Oh, yeah,
people
they're
who are
showing up in
standing up
record
and
numbers to
fighting
vote for you.
for
Thank you.
justice.
Can anybody,
That's what our movement
can anybody
is
in this
about.
room imagine moderate Republicans
drugs.
going over and voting for him? And you have to
Absolutely.
do that or you can't win.
No,
Thank you,
that
Senator
is-
Warren.
That is the problem. And that is that a progressive agenda is popular, Mayor Bloomberg, and for everyone on this stage. We talk about how to build a future. That's what matters. I talk to people in selfie lines every day who tell me about the importance of getting real help on health care. It's why I also have a way to pay for health care that doesn't raise taxes on middle-class families. But it's so much more than that. As Democrats, we need to speak to the future we can build together. We need to speak of the prosperity we can build together. How about a wealth tax in America? Because with a 2-cent tax on just the top 0.1%, we have a chance to invest in universal child care for every one of our babies, to really level the playing field, put
Thank you.
$50 billion into historically
Thank you,
black colleges and universities, and start closing the racial wealth gap by canceling student loan debt for 43 million
Excellent.
Americans. We need to talk about our aspirations, our hopes. This is a moment
Senator.
to choose hope over fear.
Senator, thank
This
you.
is our moment.
Senator, thank you. We have to take a quick break. When we come back, the Democratic presidential debate continues right after this, only on CBS.
All right, we are live on the Chabdog Sports Talk Network special, the CBS debates from Charleston, South Carolina, February 25th. We're going to take a little break here. They're heading to commercial here, so we're going to play some fun stuff like we do here, and we'll take it from there. But check this out.
How would you describe Earl Weaver's personality for somebody who never saw him or heard him?
If you were a fan, you loved him. I mean, he was going to go out and kick dirt in umpires, tell them how bad they were. You know, he didn't really know because you're wearing glasses. He wouldn't put his glasses on because he was too vain. So he'd say, "Hey, what's the scoreboard?" "Well, we're losing, Earl." And then he starts screaming at the umpires. Just the way he was. I mean, but he was like Billy Martin in that sense. Earl was Earl, and he got thrown out and got suspended for a week. And he said, why were you on the top of the step, with a big smile on your face? I said, I've never seen anything that good on Broadway. Because there was never a dull moment. He was, we had a love-hate relationship. I wrote a book called Together We Were 11'9", because I was 6'3" and he was 5'6". But he wanted to come, the pitching mound is 10 inches. He would never be taller unless he could get on the top of that mound and actually look down at me. But I once handed him the ball in Cleveland, and he goes, don't ever put the ball in my face again. I go, Earl, I just kind of put it out there. And, he was walking up the mound and all that. So,
well, his size probably would have.
So he wanted to get up there so he could actually be my equal to some degree.
But did you know that?
No, I never knew that. Earl looked at the bottom line. He didn't really know much about it. But if you were pitching well, everything was good. And if you weren't, it wasn't up to snuff. And, as good as I could be, was never.
She was like nuts. You could always tell if she was in the hotel balling old man, like everyone would be dozing off. And all of a sudden she'd start up. First you'd hear it would start like, but then she'd like really get going and she'd be more like, and she'd start going like a motorboat, Fuck me, Alex. Her boyfriend's name was Alex. Fuck me. Fuck me. Fuck me, Alex. 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 Yeah. It's just like it, man. Oh, shit. Oh. She'd have like 2 tears.
Oh, it's better. It's better. It feels better. Oh, God.
Candidates are reappearing back in front of the stage here. They've all, yeah. Your eyes are dilated. They've all done something.
I didn't know your name was Alex, man.
Some asshole pissed on my leg.
That's our agent just phoned from Mexico. It's not a bunch of nuns in a station wagon.
Must be some heavy shit. Let's go. Come on.
Heavy shit.
Fire it up. I really don't believe it. You guys are supreme idiots. I mean, how can you let a big green van slip right through your fingers?
Quite easy.
What do we end up with? Busting a bevy of nuns, a guy pisses on my leg. I lose my special canine sentry dog. Best cop I ever knew. See anything?
Nope.
Negative.
All right, Joe's getting called.
People have plans, I know, on this stage to address the gun crisis, but Congress has not been able to pass a major gun legislation in a quarter of a century. And just think about this. In those 25 years, we've had Columbine, Newtown, Parkland, Las Vegas. We could go on and on. Vice President Biden, I want to start with you. Why should anyone have faith that you're the one who can get this done now?
Because I'm the only one that ever got it done nationally. I beat the NRA twice. I got assault weapons banned. I got magazines that could not hold more than 10 rounds in them. I got them eliminated, except we had a thing called an election with hanging chads in Florida, and it was not reauthorized. In addition to that, I passed the Brady bill with waiting periods. I led that fight. But my friend to my right and others have, in fact, also given to the gun manufacturers absolute immunity. Imagine if I stood here and said we give immunity to drug companies, we give immunity to tobacco companies. That has caused carnage on our streets. 150 million people have been killed since 2007 when Bernie voted to exempt the gun manufacturers from liability. More than all the wars, including Vietnam, from that point on. carnage on our street. And I want to tell you, if I'm elected and I'm coming for you and gun manufacturers, I'm going to take you on and I'm going to beat you. I'm the only one who's done it.
Yes,
that's why we've got to change what
Washington
Washington
dig
can
in
deliver.
and talk about what really it's going to take to get something done. I've been in the Senate when I've seen gun safety legislation introduced, get a majority, and then doesn't pass because of the filibuster. Understand this. The filibuster is giving a veto to the gun industry. It gives a veto to the oil industry. It's going to give a veto on immigration until we're willing to dig in and say that if Mitch McConnell is going to do to the next Democratic president what he did to President Obama, and that is try to block every single thing he does, that we are willing to roll back the filibuster, go with a majority vote, and do what needs to be done for the American people.
Okay,
but we're going to stay on this topic and allow senators.
Mitch McConnell.
Understand this. Many people on this stage do not support rolling back the filibuster.
Thank you.
Until we're ready to
Senator.
do that, we can't.
Senator, I want to allow
change.
Senator Sanders to respond because you've gone after the insurance industry, you've taken on pharmaceutical companies, and you've taken on big tech. Why did you vote repeatedly to give gun manufacturers a pass?
Well, you know, Joe has voted for terrible trade agreements. No. Joe voted for the war in Iraq. My point was I have cast thousands of votes, including bad votes. That was a bad vote. I have today a D- voting record from the NRA. 30 years ago, I likely lost a race for the one seat for Congress in Vermont because 30 years ago I supported a ban on assault weapons. 30 years ago. Right now, my view is we need to expand background checks, end the gun show loophole, and do what the American people want, not what the NRA
wait
wants.
a second.
The opposition to the filibuster is not a discretion from a long time ago.
I think you recognize me. Thank you. I have a 6 million person organization around this country, Moms to Men Action in every town. We have put background checks. We've got background checks in 20 states. So you can do it. It's Congress that can't seem to do it, and I don't know why we think they're going to do it. The vice president voted for a death bill and supported the NRA, and certainly Senator Sanders has supported the NRA. But we can do this. We just got to stop talking about it.
But the way we do it is having someone leading the ticket from a part of the country that we actually need the votes. So I have long supported the assault weapon ban. I am the author of the bill to close the boyfriend loophole that says that domestic abusers can't go out and get an AK-47.
I wrote that law.
The boyfriend loophole?
You didn't write that bill.
Did Amy say
I wrote that bill.
boyfriend
Violence Against Women Act
Okay,
took
you did that
out of the hands of people who abused her.
We'll have a fact check look at this.
Let's look at the fact check.
loophole.
The only thing that the boyfriend loophole was not covered. I couldn't get that covered. You, in fact, when you were as a senator, tried to get it covered, and Mitch McConnell is holding up on his desk right now, and we're going to lose the Violence Against Women Act across the board.
Okay, so if I could finish.
Joe, you know your stuff.
I have the bill. Anyone can check it out to close the boyfriend loophole. Close the Charleston loophole is another bill that's out there, universal background checks. But let me say how we win this. We've got to win in the middle of the country. And while everyone talks about winning rural areas, suburban areas, I'm the only one up here with the receipts that has actually repeatedly, while being for the assault weapon ban, won in Republican congressional districts over and over again, including Michelle Bachmann's district. So having someone that can lead the ticket, that can bring people with her, is the way you get gun safety legislation. I look at these proposals and say, do they hurt my Uncle Dick in the deer stand? They do not. And so coming from a proud hunting state and still being able to pass this legislation
Senator Klobuchar, thank you. We want to allow many people to get in on this topic.
Thanks,
Mayor Buttigieg.
I'm definitely on board with the part about sending up somebody from the middle of the country. But I want to come back to this question about the filibuster, because this is not some long ago bad vote that Bernie Sanders took. This is a current bad position that Bernie Sanders holds. And we're in South Carolina. How are we going to deliver a revolution if you won't even support a rule change? We are in the state. We are in the state where Strom Thurmond used the filibuster to block civil rights legislation repeatedly. No less a Senate traditional figure than Harry Reid has called for it to go. It has got to go because otherwise Washington will not deliver. I was in high school when the Columbine shooting happened. And I remember everybody in Washington saying, never again. We'll never let this happen again. And then a second school shooting generation has now been produced. Shame on us if we allow there to be a third.
Right.
And also, in terms of making the case, I think it wouldn't be a bad idea for somebody to illustrate from the perspective of a veteran why the kinds of weaponry, anything remotely like what I trained on in order to go serve in a war zone, has no business being sold anywhere near an American school or church or neighborhood.
All right, Senator Sanders, please.
30 years ago, supported a ban on assault weapons. Mike Bloomberg has started a very good organization, Moms Demand Action. Congratulations. They have credited me with gun sense, as you.
Yes, we did.
Furthermore, it is my view that the time is now, and Joe made this point. Look, at the end of the day, we need to rally the American people. Here is the good news. Because of all these disgusting and horrific mass shootings, the American people now understand that we must be aggressive on gun safety, not be dictated to by the NRA. And I am proud that I have a D- voting record from the NRA. If elected president, it will get worse than that.
All right, Mr. Steyer, please.
Look,
Mr. Steyer.
It isn't a question of the American people deciding that we have too much gun violence. Everyone in America knows we have too much gun violence. The problem we have is that corporations have bought Washington, D.C. The gun manufacturers own the Senate of the United States. So even though more than 90% of Americans want mandatory background checks on every gun purchase, we can't get it through the Senate. So the question you have to ask yourself is, how do we change the Senate of the United States in a material way? And there are two things. That's why I am for term limits of 12 years for every congressperson and senator, to change who's in charge, to get rid of Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham and Ted Cruz. But I am also, Senator Sanders is right. We need to win a huge victory across the board.
All right,
Democrats need to go to the grassroots. I built one of the biggest grassroots organizations in the United States. The way to win at the grassroots is tell the truth and organize. That's what it's going to take in 2020.
Your time's up, sir. Bill Whitaker.
Shut that cunt's mouth! Education. South Carolina's schools score in the bottom half of the national assessment. Black students here consistently score worse than white students. Mayor Bloomberg, a key element of your response to failing schools in New York City was a dramatic increase in public charter schools. As president, would you pursue that same strategy and seek to expand charter schools nationwide?
I'm not sure they're appropriate every place. I can only tell you in New York, they provided parents with an alternative to send students to them. The charter schools are mixed in with the non-charter public schools because our charter schools are public schools as well. They've helped each other. I saw a statistic the other day. When I came into office, 0 New York City schools were in the top 25 of the state. When I left, 23 out of 25 were from New York City. We've cut the gap between the rich and the poor. We've made an enormous difference in all of the options that parents have. I raised teachers' salaries by 43%. I put an extra $5 billion into our school system. I value education. It is the only ways to solve the poverty problem is to get people a good education. And rather than just talk about it in New York, we actually did it.
Senator Shut that cunt's mouth or I'll come over there and fuck spot her head.
So this is one thing where a president can make a big difference all by herself. And I'm going to start with my Secretary of Education. My Secretary of Education will be someone who has taught in public school. My Secretary of Education will be someone who believes in public education. And my Secretary of Education will believe that public dollars should stay in public schools. One more thing. My Secretary of Education will believe that it is time to get rid of high-stakes testing. We need to support our children. But look, we want to build a future in this country. We build a future by investing in our children. I've got a plan to put $800 billion new federal dollars into our public schools. Education is not free. We must invest in the future of our children.
Senator Sanders.
This campaign, our campaign is about changing American priorities. Instead of giving tax breaks to billionaires, we're going to have high-quality, universal child care for every family in this country. Because the psychologists tell us 0 to 4 are the most important years of human development. We are going to triple funding for low-income Title I schools because kids' education should not depend upon the zip code in which they live. We're going to make public colleges and universities tuition-free through a tax on Wall Street speculation, and we're going to move to make certain that no teacher in America earns less than $60,000 a year. We want great teachers.
Mayor Buttigieg.
Look, the best thing...
Cats can have a little bit of salami. Okay. That's it for the Chabdog Sports Talk Radio Network review